Hey, this is Matt Wimmer from Brody Precision. In this video, we're starting a brand new series. We're going to be looking at an introduction to Niagara. If you've never really used it before, or you need a little brushing up on the basic skills, this will be the series for you. And the first place to start with a series like this is the install process, getting Niagara actually installed and working on your machine or your supervisor or your engineering demo, whatever you're going to be installing it on. So that's what we're going to look at here. We're going to start with some basics about what the minimum requirements are, what your computer should look like, and the operating system that's required. And then we're going to actually go out to BP Tech Center, grab the latest version, install it, and then we're going to get it licensed. You may have gone through the process before of purchasing a license. You'll know that when you purchase the license, you don't actually get a license. You need to get a host ID, which is the unique identifier for your computer that is actually licensed. So at the end of the install process, we'll get that host ID and we'll get actually licensed and get the software running. So let's jump into a quick little PowerPoint here, go over some basics, and then we'll jump into Windows and actually get installed. All right, so minimum requirements. Niagara is a super light application by default by itself. It doesn't require much. So you'll see here what looks a little intimidating on the processor side of things. It's calling for a Xeon processor. This Xeon processor was released in 2012. So pretty much any modern day processor, new processor, will be totally fine for running Niagara. You'll see that the basics. It wants dual or quad core processors. Nowadays, it is not uncommon to see an 8-core, 12-core, 16-core processor, even on the lower end of things. So nothing to worry about on the processor side. Browser, obviously, you're going to be using one of the current modern browsers, Chrome, Firefox, and Edge, all supported. Same thing on the mobile side. You'll want Chrome or Safari. And for memory, you're going to want at least 6 gig of memory. 8 gig, is the recommendation for your memory if you're doing a larger system. My suggestion would be, with a modern operating system and modern computers, 16 gig is probably where you should be starting. 8 gig is just, you can do better and it doesn't cost much more. Same thing goes for hard drive space. They ask for a 4 gig minimum. Again, this hard drive space requires depends a lot on how much archiving, how much histories you're doing, especially on the supervisor side of things. On a workbench side, your engineering workbench, you're going to want more hard drive space because you're going to have more stations. You're going to have more software that's installed other than just Niagara. So on both sides of things, I think you should be doing at least 1 terabyte of storage for your hard drive. And ideally, that's going to be a solid-state SSD and not a spinning normal hard drive. Display, again, nothing to worry about here. At the low end of things, you'll probably be using 1080p. You'll likely be more than that, depending on the use case. Same thing with network support. You'll likely have a gigabit Ethernet interface on your computer. You very well may have more if you're running something out of a server somewhere. And then on the high-end things, you might be using containers, like something like Docker, that is supported, but the process of getting it installed and licensed is a little bit different than the typical use case, so we're not going to be covering that here. Then obviously you need a valid license, and then you need internet access for the license. That's not strictly required. It makes the process a little bit easier in getting your license if you have internet access, but if you don't have internet access, you can manually download the license to a thumb drive or something and plug it into your machine that is separate from the internet and get yourself licensed that way. As far as supported operating systems, this is current as of the 1st of May, and you'll see that Niagara 4.15 is even listed on here, which it hasn't been officially released yet, but it is right around the corner. Whole bunch of different operating systems and things that are supported. The top half of this table you can sort of ignore. Linux installation is a different animal than the installation that we're going to be talking about in this video. So at the very bottom, this is really what we're concerned about is the Windows side of things. And if you are using a current version of Niagara, so 4.14, you can use any version of Windows Server basically except for 2025. And if you're using Windows 2025, you'll just have to wait till 4.15 or roll back to 2022. But as you would expect, the normal consumer or professional versions of Windows 10 and 11, are both supported across the board. All right, so that does it for the PowerPoint part. Let's actually jump into Windows now and get started and actually install and get the software running. All right, so we are now in a little virtual machine that I set up just for this demonstration. Totally blank, nothing else running on it, nothing else installed. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up our browser, and we're going to go to BP Tech Center and get signed in. Because we're a BP Tech Center customer, we have access to all of our software that we buy from Brody Precision, and can get that very easily. So I will now go to my vendors. We're going to do Vicon for this install. You can see 4.14 is right here. That's the latest version that's available for Vicon. So I'm going to click download on that and wait for it to do its thing. It should be pretty quickly here. Got a nice speedy internet connection, so we'll go along pretty fast. All right, so we're downloaded now, and the first thing that we're going to do, this comes downloaded as a zip file, so we'll right-click and do an extract all. We'll leave it in its current location, and we'll do an extract. This will take a little bit of time here because it's kind of a big file, but shouldn't be too bad. So give it a couple moments, and we'll be on to the next step. All right, so we're extracted, and the thing we want to make note of here is that we have our installer x64. It used to be the case where Niagara could run on 32-bit and 64-bit versions of Windows. That's no longer the case, hasn't been the case for a little while now. So you'll only see the x64 installer. If you are using 32-bit and you go to install, it will yell at you and say that you're not using a compatible system. You'll need to upgrade or use a different computer or something like that for Niagara in order to actually have it run. So I know that we're on x64 here, so I'm going to hit the installer now. I'll close out of these windows, and then we'll say next on the first step. We'll agree to the EULA, and we're going to use the default location for the installer, and we're going to leave this bottom checkbox checked because we are going to use this to install and work with JSONs and things like that. So we'll say next, and then it's going to say this folder doesn't exist. Do you want to create it? Of course, yes. And then it's going to ask me for where I want my daemon home to be. The daemon home is the location of all of your running stations. That's where they're going to live. This is the default. I don't ever really see anyone changing this. I'm not sure why you would. I guess there's a possibility why you would want to, but for us, we can leave it as the default, and we'll say next. And again, that folder is not existing, so it will create it. Yep, that's okay. Next is the passphrase. This is an important thing to remember and know, so don't just randomly put in anything in here. Make sure you're writing this down, saving it in your password manager, that kind of thing, because you will potentially need it again in the future. And what this is a password, essentially, that's going to be encrypting your stations that are living on your computer. So things like the users in your stations, those passwords that are in there get encrypted so that they're not stored in a plain text way where if someone got a hold of them, they could see the passwords, that kind of thing. So keep this in mind. Remember this password, or this passphrase, excuse me. Don't just randomly put in anything in here. Write it down. So I will punch in a passphrase here. We'll say next. And then we can choose if we want to have start menu shortcuts, desktop shortcuts. That's totally up to you, depending on how you like to use your machine. I'll just leave the start menu shortcuts. And then we'll hit next, and we'll go through the actual install process. This will take a little bit of time. Shouldn't be too bad. And we'll come back after it is complete. All right, so install is done. Now it's going to ask me what I want to do now that we're complete. We can launch Workbench, and we can also start our platform daemon at the same time. We're going to do both. We're going to leave these both checked. We're going to hit finish. Now the software will try to start up. If you are at all familiar with Niagara, if you've used it before, you know this startup process when you first open the program takes a little bit of time, takes a minute or two. Totally normal. No matter what the power level of your machine is, this takes longer than you might expect it to. So don't be worried if you sit at this screen for a little while. That is normal. On the first install, or the first run, after install, you'll sit on the screen for a little while, and then it'll pop up and say, hey, you're not licensed. Here's your host ID. So that's the screen that we're waiting for, and that's what we'll expect to see once this is complete. So we'll just sit here for a moment and wait for that to come up. And now it's gone out. It's tried to get a license from the licensing server. It doesn't see one, so now it's going to pop up my browser automatically, and it's going to give you your host ID of the local machine. The host ID is what your license is attached to. So when you purchase a license from us at Brody, we don't actually give you a license until we have this host ID number from you. And this is unique to your specific install, your specific computer, specific version of Windows, yada, yada, yada. So we need this file, we need this string of text. Critically important part of this is that don't take a screenshot of this. It's easy to mess up some of the characters in here. You don't want to manually transpose. If you want your license to be bound quickly to your host ID, the easiest way to do that is to do a copy paste. Select it, copy it, and send an email to your sales rep who got you set up with your license, or T-Support at BrodyPrecision.com, and we can make that happen for you. So I have a license available for me, so give me 1 second, and I will get that license bound to this host ID, and we'll be nearly complete. All right, so our license has been bound to our host ID, so the next step is to restart Workbench. So I'm going to go to my Start menu, go down here to my Workplace N4, open that up, and we'll wait again for it to go out, ping the server, grab the license file, put it in the right place, and we'll be off and running. So give it a moment here, and we will see that happen. It's going out to licensing server now, checking, and you can see now the license is successful. This machine is now licensed, and it'll go through the full startup process now and get started. And there we are. We have our full version of Niagara now ready to run, ready to program, do whatever we need to do. One thing that is worth noting is if I go into my C drive now and my Niagara folder where I'm installed, my Niagara is installed, and I go to the security directory, in this licenses folder, this is where the license actually lives. Should you have a server or a Workbench or something like that that doesn't have internet access when you need to get it licensed, or it's totally separated from the internet and doesn't have an internet connection and never will, this is where you would install your license file manually, and the software knows to go here, look for it, and start up and run. That way it doesn't need to talk to the licensing server to actually make things happen. So hopefully that was helpful and informative for you. This is the first video in a new series that we're going to be doing on just the basics of Niagara. I think there have been a bunch of questions about some basic things from new users, and I think that's always helpful to brush up on your skills and things, and maybe you learn some new things from looking back at the basics, even if you're already very experienced and have been doing this for a long time. It never hurts. So thanks as always for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any specific things that you would like to see that might be considered basic in Niagara, leave them down in the comments below, and hopefully we get to them as we work our way through this series and the basics of running and using Niagara. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.